Hi, everyone. My name's Christopher Lee Maher, and I've had the great privilege of being on Kim's show today. She's an awesome, amazing woman. I've been interviewed over 250 times on different podcasts, and this is by far my favorite. It was fun, it was soulful, it was honest, it was open. She's a great host, and she brings a lot of love, and she has a passion, thirst, and curiosity for growth. And I think you're going to really enjoy what we get into today.
Welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Kim Sorrelle, and I am a speaker. I'm an author. I'm a coach. I get to do a lot of fun things in life. I'm a grandma, I'm a mom, whatever. But my favorite thing to do is meet new people. And I get to meet amazing people. And today is no different than that. I have a guest that you are going to love, a former Navy SEAL. Holy cow. That is a small group of people. And I get one of them on my show. And you get to meet him. I'm so excited. And he's done a lot and he knows a lot. And so I'm so thrilled that he's here. Christopher, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for the lovely introduction and Happy New Year, everyone.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, let 2025 be the best year yet, right?
Yeah, 1000%. I love the number 2025. It just feels better to me. I don't know. It just feels growth. It feels more positive. I guess because I'm born on June 5th, I'm kind of attached to the number five.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, my basketball, high school basketball jersey was number 25. So 25 is a good
Yes.
number. I
Yeah, it's a good
agree. I
number,
like that
right?
number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
so
Christopher, we've got a few fun things to talk about today, but I want people to get to know you. And so
okay.
I would like to know about 8-year-old Christopher.
8-year-old Christopher. 8-year-old Christopher is at Milton Hershey School in Hershey, Pennsylvania. It's a boarding school started by a guy named Milton Snavely Hershey and his wife, Catherine Hershey. And they adopted 13 unfortunates in 1909 and created what was called the Hershey Industrial School. Well, my mom passed when I was 7.5. And then I bounced around in foster care for a bit, and then I had an opportunity to go to Milton Hershey. And so I spent my eighth birthday, June 5th, what would that be, June 5th, 1976, in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Wow. Wow. I'm so sorry to hear about your mom
Oh,
because
well, thank you for sharing.
mom plays a special role in people's lives. And my mom died way too young as well, but not at the age that you lost your mom. So sorry to hear about that.
Thank you.
But it sounds like a good place to go. Like you ended up in a pretty good place.
Yeah, I mean, I ended up in a place that was good in terms of building resilience and inner strength. But for me, I needed more nurturing, right?
Mm,
I didn't need
mm,
rules and regulations. I was already a good kid, so I could follow rules and regulations. And I would have been very easy to parent. And so a school that's very strict and wasn't the right place for me, to be honest with you.
mm.
And as
Yeah.
much value as I extrapolated from that experience, if the roles were reversed, I would prefer to be poor, being nurtured and loved and cared for, than be sitting in the world's foremost, right? And the richest school in the world.
Mm.
That would be my choice. I'd rather be
Yeah.
poor and loved and nurtured than have all these great opportunities. Because for me, in the end, love is the only thing that matters.
Ah, amen to that, brother. I wrote a book on love. I spent a
Yeah,
year figuring out the true meaning of love.
yeah,
And I totally agree. Love is what it's all about. And it would be so hard not
yeah.
to be nurtured. Like
Yeah, yeah,
if there's a puzzle piece that's just kind of missing.
yeah. Like one set of house parents for 16 boys. There's not enough love to go around, right?
Hmm.
Like, when you're that age, you need a pat in the back, a kiss on the forehead, a reminder that everything's going to work out, somebody telling you they really appreciate you and love you every day. And that was missing, right? And so, so I was starving for affection.
So how did that affect you later on, like
I
as you
think as I
grew?
grew, I was very self-sufficient. I think the impact of that is emotionally, I was hyper independent.
Mm,
And when
right,
you're emotionally hyper independent, you never need anyone, right? And
right.
um, so it's difficult to lean into others and be receptive to them showing up for me. So I put myself into a position of always being able to show up for others.
Mm,
And
yeah,
that has its limitations too, right?
yeah, it does. It does because it can be exhausting. And then it's like food. Like, if you're always the one doing the cooking and serving
Yeah,
and not of any of the eating,
yeah,
then you're gonna wither away.
yeah. And I became very good at feeding myself, to be fair, right? I created a life where all of the things that I love to do, I do. And then as I started to open up my body and start to shed all the, I guess what I would call childhood stress, I began to become more receptive, right? And then I opened up and had people who could feed me, who had shared values. And I would spend time with people who uh, met me in the place where I appreciated things, the things I appreciated most about life.
Wow, that's good that you met people like that. So here you are and your life as a teenager and all of that. And then somehow you become in this incredible special force, one of a kind, that is so hard, I would imagine, to become a part of. Like it was when you were a kid, did you dream about that? Or what led you down that road?
Well, one of my buddies that I went to Milton Hershey School with was a guy named Mark Riggleman. And Mark was always talking about Navy SEALs and Green Berets and all this stuff in high school. And I remember thinking, like, dude, what's wrong with you, man? like, like when you get out of Milton Hershey School, go lead a peaceful life, right? He was like, no, I want to crawl around in the dark and sneak up on people. And, he always made me laugh. And then one time I was at his house, and in the basement was a biannual magazine about SEAL training and the SEAL teams. And as soon as I picked it up and I saw the cover, and there were 8 boat crews, and in a boat crew, 7 guys running down the beach with telephone poles on their shoulder, I thought they're going to be able to challenge me. And I was gone, what, 7 weeks later?
Wow. Wow. That's interesting. That's really interesting because it's like when you're a kid and what you dream about growing up, like your friend talking about the berets, talking about Navy SEALs, it's like made for TV kind of excitement for kids almost.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I have to tell you, I have 2 sons. I've got 4 sons. 2 of them went into the Navy.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so when my first one did, he came to me and said, Mom, I'm going in the Navy. He was, about to be out of high school. And I said, No, you're not. Because I grew up with Vietnam. I
Mm,
grew up during that time. And I prayed that there would not be a war when my kids were old enough to join the military.
yeah.
And we were in war at the time that my son wanted to join the military. And I said, You can't, Noah, you can't go do that. You need my permission. Like I must have to sign something, you're my son. And he said, No, 18 and I get to make these decisions. I'm like, what do you mean? I was just I was afraid. I was nervous. But it was great for him. And then he talked his brother into going. And even though it was tough, it was great for them. Like it led them to where they are today.
Hmm.
And it was a good experience. I can't imagine though, Christopher. Here you're at the school with rules, 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 rules.
Sure.
And sure, it looks glamorous, like you can become that guy, whatever. But it's another place with rules, rules, rules.
1000%. So my experience of that initially in boarding school, it was imposed discipline that was involuntary. Like I didn't want to go there, right? And the way
Mm-hmm.
that I wrapped my mind around getting into the military and the SEAL teams is it was voluntary imposed discipline. So at least I volunteered, right? So
Ah,
I was still in control. The previous 10 years, I didn't volunteer for that gig, at least
mm,
at a personality level. Maybe at a soul level, I did, which I think God makes no mistakes, right? In the end, He puts you where He needs you in order for you to be able to serve powerfully in the way that He wants you to in the future. And so,
yeah.
my relationship with God helped me immensely through both of those experiences.
Wow. Wow. That's so cool. So, how do you go from signing on the dotted line, take the test, I don't remember what it's called, to get into the Navy, whatever that
Yeah,
test is?
the ASVAB.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, you take the test, you join the military. How do you go from that to becoming a Navy SEAL?
Well, let's see. So when you get to boot camp, at I think like the last week, or maybe the second to the last week, they show you this film. And it's this like high speed, low drag operation that they're filming about the SEAL teams. These guys are coming in hot from a helicopter. They're getting off the helicopter through, it's called fast roping. They're fast roping to the ground. They set up their perimeter. Then they go into this building. They take down the bad guys. They grab the hostages. They put them back in a helicopter and they take off quickly, right? And it's all happening very fast and filmed really well. And then after that, they offer you an opportunity if you scored a certain number on your ASVAB test, you're able to take the physical part of the examination, right?
Mhm.
And so, you get in the pool and you swim and you get out and you do pull ups and push ups and sit ups. And then I think you run a half a mile in a certain amount of time. And then, they say yay or nay to whether they're going to give you an opportunity to head out to Coronado, San Diego to go to SEAL training. And after I got out of the pool, the push ups were super easy. The sit ups, that was nothing. But I got on a pull up bar and he needed to do 8, and I'd only done 6.
Mm.
And so they were like, you're going to have to take the test again. So I came back, I passed the test. And then the recruiter, it's called a SEAL team recruiter, he said, look, you're too skinny. And I was like, I'm too skinny. Like, what's this guy talking about? He's like, yeah, man, you're too skinny. I'm going to send you to the fleet, okay? And you're going to be there about a year and a half. And then we'll send you orders to go to SEAL training. And then after that, I was very, 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 very upset, right? Because the only reason why I came in to the military and to the Navy was to be a Navy SEAL, not to be on a ship, right? So he gave me the worst news you could ever give me. And then I figured out while I was at the USS Fulton how I was going to be able to get to SEAL training.
Wow. Wow.
And
Yeah, I would imagine that that had to be a blow. That was not a day that you cherish
no,
at all in your memories. Yeah.
yeah,
And because you're too skinny, that's interesting.
yeah,
That's interesting. I
yeah.
wonder how many guys are ever told that.
I don't know, but I think in a certain way, he probably saw something that I didn't see.
Mm,
And knowing, well, I mean, he's a Navy SEAL, so obviously he went through training himself, which means he saw guys that failed And one of the things in SEAL training that you have to deal with is called hypothermia, right?
Mm.
And I was
Hmm.
extremely lean. And when I got to SEAL training, even though I had gained some weight before I got there, I still dealt with full blown hypothermia.
Mm.
Like my core temperature was what, 97.3 degrees, 96.8.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And so you had to recover from that.
Yeah, 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 full blown. Like I was hospitalized for ventricular fibrillation
Mm.
of my heart, which is essentially a heart attack.
Wow. Wow. Has that affected your health today?
Um, Maybe, I don't know. I'm sure in some ways, in a lot of ways, when you go through something extremely intense, it leaves an imprint in your body. And then your body's doing everything that it can to make sure that it adapts to those kinds of stressors, which are very unique compared to what the average human experiences, right? So I'm sure there have been some over adaptation, physiological uh, challenges that are going on underneath. But right now, I've solved everything that came up when I was in my late 20s. So I
Yeah.
had full
Wow.
so I had full blown insomnia. I had pain at every joint on my left side. I was losing my vision by the time I was 33, by 31. I was losing my hearing at 29. I needed a full blown hip replacement by 33. And I had a lot of other things going on. And, I got to solve all of those with the work that I do in the world today.
Wow. Which we're going to get into. But I'm curious, what percentage of being a SEAL had an impact on your health?
I would say the negative effects on my health were definitely extremely high,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Because, when you're in cold water, I'm somebody, I don't do well in the cold, right? But I
With
grew up,
you.
right? I grew
Yeah.
up in Pennsylvania. So you know what it's like in high school in Michigan, right? You got on a hoodie and a jean jacket,
Hmm.
right? And I grew up in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, and so you're after a football game, you're grabbing a keg of beer, and you got your hoodie and your jean jacket, and you're standing outside all night drinking, and I was used to the cold, but that's cold air. Cold water has 25 times the cooling effect of air because it's 25 times more dense, right?
Wow.
And
Wow.
so being in that cold, dense water was terrible for me physiologically.
Yeah. It would be terrible for me. I don't like to be, I live in Michigan,
Yeah.
but I don't like to be cold. And I can't imagine, the times that I've willingly gone into Lake Michigan
Mm,
when the temperatures were so cold still in July. The outside temperature is great, the air temperature is great, but man, that lake can be freezing and
freezing.
numbing, and it's painful.
Totally.
It's painful. So I can't imagine being in your position because it's not like go to the beach one day. This is your life,
Yeah. And thank God I was young because, when you're younger, you're more resilient, right? And
right?
even though I had a strong mind because of everything that I went through as a child, that strong mind that I had ended up being a curse because I continued to push myself through things even after I got out of the SEAL teams. I decided I wanted to chase a goal of mine, which was to get to the Olympic trials. And I was pushing myself at 110% of everything that I did because of the indoctrination of everything that I learned at boarding school and everything that I learned in the SEAL teams. And so I only had one speed, which was all in all the time. And so I think that also played a major role in the dysfunction in my health.
Mm, yeah, yeah. I can see that. It's amazing what our minds do to our health.
Yes.
It's right. And
Yeah.
so you had to find that out the hard way. I mean, you were in dire straits.
1000%. Like when you're losing your hearing and you're reading people's lips, and, I wasn't telling anybody what was going on, but I would be listening to songs on the radio And my friend Warbo would say to me, dude, those aren't the lyrics. And I'd be arguing with him. Like, what are you talking about? Those aren't the lyrics. He's like, dude, those aren't the lyrics. I don't like know what you're singing, but those aren't the words. And I was like, oh, whoa, whoa, okay. And so when you start losing your vision, that's a whole nother level because
Mm,
now you can't see, right? And so all the like I needed really large print and then I had to start to like hold everything away from me. I was only 31 years old. You know, those are the things you're supposed to experience in your late 50s, maybe early 60s. And so because of all the stress that I dealt with at a very young age, my aging process was had sped up intensely.
mm.
You know, joint pain and arthritis. You experience those things in maybe 45, 55, 65, maybe 75. That stuff starts kicking in. It doesn't kick in at 31,
Mm-mm.
right? At 32. And,
Yeah.
you know, I had to figure out how to deal with that. And I did. I really figured it out. And I got some help along the way. I learned from a bunch of people. I recruited anyone who would help me. Um, and I forged ahead and I figured out how to put my body back into supreme balance. And today my vision is perfect. I haven't had one bit of pain in my joints. I sleep like a bear. I'm never waking up in the middle of the night. And these are key signs. Like I'm close to 60 now. So at 60 it would be normal to wake up in the middle of the night to pee once a night, right?
Mhm.
And I hear that from my friends. Oh, I get up in the middle of the night. I got to urinate, blah, 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 blah. Those things never happen to me. So I was able to reverse the aging process by decades.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm stronger than I was when I was in SEAL training, and I basically never work out. Okay. As lean as I was when I was 27 years old, I don't do any cardio. Um, my hair is still on my head. My vision, I don't wear glasses ever. My hearing is great. My sleep is awesome. Everything's working really well.
Okay. I need to know this secret because I do get up in the night and I would love to sleep all night long. That would
Yeah.
be wonderful. And I don't have joint pain, I don't have a lot of the stuff, but it's interesting too that you don't do cardio, that you're not working out all the time, and that's how you're Jack LaLanning your body or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So tell us, I'm dying to know.
Yeah. I have a system that I co created called Bestercise, which BEST stands for Bioenergetic Self Transformational Sequences. And you know, God bestows gifts upon everyone. And one of the gifts that He bestowed upon me was synthesizing systems to come to a more complete whole. And so Bestercise uses isometric, eccentric, and concentric contractions in various different positions to maintain a low level of density. And what I mean by that is as you age, your fascial planes become thicker and more dense. Your muscles, they become shorter. Your vascular tissue becomes more hard. And so I have figured out ways and positions and strategies to remove all of that excessive density out of the human body so that you can maintain all of the youthful power, all of the youthful strength, all of the youthful speed that you had in your teens and early 20s.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so I want that. So where can people find out? How can people
How do people
uh
find out about that? Well, I mean,
yeah.
in the future, I'll release a system onto the planet called Bestercise. But if you go to truebodyintelligence.com and you email us at support@truebodyintelligence.com, somebody will give you access to the free gift in the portal. And I have one Bestercise in there that's for your large intestine and your small intestine. And your large intestine is about elimination and your small intestine is about absorption, right? And so if you pull the tension and stress out of your upper neck, right, your traps and your back shoulder, then what's going to happen is you're going to feel a lot more freedom. But what's going to also happen, you're going to feel really de-stressed from your everything that's going on in your day. The benefit of that is going to improve your hearing, okay? It's going to improve the range of motion on your shoulders. So if you're sleeping at night and you're getting numb in your arms, or you're feeling numbness in your fingers when you wake up, you have to take tension and stress out of the upper neck, the trapezius in the back of the shoulder, and your teres major, teres minor, infraspinatus, and suprainfraspinatus. And if you can do that on a regular basis, you're going to feel a lot more ease in your life, and things that typically bother you and get you um, overly amped up and that cause you to be excessively critical of yourself or others, you're going to start to see that disappear.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's only one position, right? And we have,
Wow.
you know,
Wow.
hundreds of positions, but I teach the basics, which are 16, and then, medium levels another 16, and then mastery levels another 16. So there's 48 positions that will help you get high energy, quiet mind, grounded emotions, and an effervescent spirit, right? And you're going to feel much more deeply connected to God, because what God would create a body that ran out of energy too quickly or died off too quickly? No, that's not
Right.
what God created a very powerful body that's meant to be here for 100 plus years, right? My
Right.
grandmother, she left the planet at 68. My mom died at 29. Her father was out of here at 43. So if you do the average of those, we're talking 45 years old in my family, right? I've already surpassed that, and I feel very youthful and present and alive. And I think that everybody who wants to have a deep spiritual connection to Jesus and to God would want to do the best they could to take care of this beautiful thing that God bestowed upon us, which is this highly intelligent mechanism that our soul lives in. And when your body feels good, you do good. When your body feels bad, you do bad. It's
Yeah.
literally that
Absolutely.
simple.
Yeah. Wow. It's so good. Like,
It's so good.
yeah, no kidding. I mean, who doesn't want to feel younger, look younger, have that kind of energy? I can't tell you how many times I've been in a room with a toddler just running around, and people say, "Oh my gosh, I wish I had that kind of energy," right? Because as you get older, that is what happens. And do you see it? Like, it seems to me people just kind of give into it. Like, well, I'm in my 60s, so of course I'm going to have some aches and pains, or of course I'm going to be getting up at night, or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, I think that's a limiting belief. And to be honest with you, if they were sitting in front of God, God would tell them that that's an absolute lie. He would
Hmm.
go, Becky or Susie or John or Mike, listen, you're telling yourself stories, okay, so that you can avoid taking care of the gift that I gave you, right? If God were to come down to earth, he would sit there and he would say to every single human, take care of the things that I gave you, right? I gave you a body, stretch it. I gave you all this beautiful whole food, eat it. I gave you these beautiful, comfortable beds and amazing homes to live in. Rest. So if you're eating well, you're stretching your body, and you're resting deeply, and you're taking advantage of all the gifts that God bestowed upon us, then you would be honoring the very thing that God gave you. And if you're not doing that, then you're dishonoring the gifts that God gave you. And I would ask everyone to ask themselves, why would anyone do that? You'd only do that if you were insane. Meaning if some aspect of you was out to lunch, right? And
Yeah,
so I do everything I can to honor the gift that God gave me. He gave me this body. He also was taking it away from me. He said, look, Christopher, you're not using this the way this was designed. Maybe I'm going to give you a lot of pain, and I'm going to take away your vision. I'm going to take away your hearing. I'm going to take away your movement until you wake up and you go, oh my goodness, what am I doing? why am I being this way? And he taught me, never chase recognition from others. Get your recognition from me. And you'll
Mm.
get your recognition from me when you put into place the gifts that I give you. And if you're going to honor those gifts, you're going to have a long, fruitful life where you'll be able to add great value and intense positive impact to other people's lives. Now, here's these things that I brought to the planet. Plant these seeds and bear fruit for others. And I said, okay. And I'm going to get down. And I got down and I put in 100,000 hours of practical research into figuring out how to maximize the gifts that God gave us at a
Wow, 100.
physical level, at a physiological level, at a structural level, at a psychological level, at an emotional level, but at an energetic, soulful level. And I've been fortunate that He gave me a multitude of gifts and information and the passion and the drive and the ambition to see it through. And I did.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. You know, you talk about limiting beliefs, because we can all have them because of what we're told when we're kids, or what we're told on TV, how we're supposed to be or not be, and who we are and who we're not, and lose our identity and have limiting beliefs. And I think the other thing that happens is we want to blame. We want to blame, oh gosh, I got the fat gene, or well, it's my age, or it's whatever it happens to be, but blame whatever it is. And when you get away from blaming and you get into claiming your life and
Mm,
realizing no one is responsible for you except you, nobody. So whoever, whatever weight you're at, like if weight's an issue, if drinking is an issue, if whatever it is that's weighing you down, bringing you down to be not so honoring to God, no one's putting food in your mouth. You're the one doing that. And I was told that years ago, and I went, oh, it's so true. What we decide to do with our bodies is 100% up to us.
yeah.
And yeah, so taking that body responsibility is huge.
And the thing is, and I think that what's lost on people is everything is connected, right? And so when you're a mother and you're making poor choices, your children are observing you. And children have no filters between womb and seven. So everything that you're doing, they're interpreting that as love. So if you're
Mm.
drinking beer, if you're eating a bunch of sugar, if you're using abusive language, if you're acting with unethical behavior, your children are observing that. And because they love you, and love is meant to be unconditional, they are interpreting what you're doing, the negative things that you're doing, as love as well. And then they
Mm.
grow up and then they repeat those same behaviors because that's what was being imprinted into their nervous systems when they had no boundaries. And so a
Mm.
lot of the people that are making poor choices around food, poor poor choices around sleep, poor choices around movement, poor choices around communication, it's because that's what was programmed into them, I mean into their subconscious, right? So subconscious imprints are between womb and seven. Unconscious imprints happen between 7 and 13. And then conscious imprints occur 13 until now, depending on how old you are, right? So one of the things that humans have to realize in this time and age is that, oh, when I get stressed, I lean on my history. And what I mean by that is this: when you lean on your history, you're leaning on what your parents used to manage their stress. And so you have positive stress management tools and you have negative stress management tools. Well, if you had a dad that got up and first thing in the morning you saw him lacing up his tennis shoes and putting on his shorts and running out the door and come back 25 minutes later and doing some stretching in the living room, you got to observe a father who was using positive stress management tools, right? But the exact
Mhm.
opposite is also true, is if you woke up in the morning and you saw your dad grabbing a bottle of whiskey out of the upper cupboard and pouring himself a couple shots before he got in the car and grabbed his hard hat and his work belt and went to work, well then you got to observe that he used negative stress management tools. And so every single human on the planet that's using a negative stress management tool, the only reason why they're doing it is because it's in their historical record of their family. And the question
Mm.
is, how do you transcend that? Like my grandfather, he died of cirrhosis of the liver. My mother, she committed suicide. And my grandmother, she died of lung cancer and colon cancer. And so all three of them were using negative stress management tools because at that time we were in a place in the world where education was very limited. The only people who could get education were people who could afford it. And if you came from a poor family, and my mom's family's Irish, right? They're basically coal miners from Pennsylvania. So, um, so there weren't a lot of options that were positive to manage their negative stressors that they were dealing with at a very high level. Okay, so I understand why people are making the choices. But what I would say is this: I had a teacher. His name is Leroy Galloway. You can look him up. He's the most successful track coach in the history of Pennsylvania. Okay, he's won like multiple PIAA championships in track and field. And Leroy said to me, I was in sixth grade and I was in English class and I gave him some BS about my homework not getting done. Like the dog ate it, or, he knew I was lying, right? And he said, listen, stand up on the table and turn around and read what's on the wall. And on the wall, it said, excuses are tools of incompetence that build monuments to nothingness. And those who utilize them are very seldom good at anything else. Excuses, excuses, excuses. And I remember that from sixth grade. You gotta remember, that's the only thing I remember reading in sixth grade, right? So you can imagine that I've been able to take that with me my whole life. So even though I've done things and I know that they've been harmful, I've always knew that they were harmful, and I was the one to blame. And so what I would
Mhm.
say to anyone who's listening that's struggling with developing a healthy sleep pattern, someone who's struggling with developing a healthy relationship with food, someone who's struggling to develop a healthy relationship with their body, you know, get on your knees and ask God for strength, right?
Mm. Right, right. That
Ask
makes so much sense.
ask God
Yeah.
for strength and then take it a level further and then apologize. Say to God, listen, I'm really sorry that I've been abusing and mistreating this gift that you gave me called the human body. And I request that you send me all the energy and the love and the care that I need for myself in order to be able to transcend these behaviors that are historical, that have been in my family for a long time. Because, Americans are basically peasant stock, right? Like when you go to Europe and you look around, you gotta understand a lot of Europeans, they were middle class or higher. Those are the ones that stayed around. The other ones hopped on ships and said, I'm getting out of town. And so to America came what? All of the peasants from all of these really dire situations that their families were living in. And so if you have one person in your family and they've finally made it to college, your lineage is winning. But do yourself a favor and take it to the next step. And the next
Mhm.
step is to get on your knees and admit to God that you've been misusing and mistreating this beautiful body, this beautiful mind, these beautiful emotions that he gave you, and ask for help. And I promise you, if you ask for help, you'll get it.
It's so interesting that you're talking about forgiveness that way because it really makes so much sense. But I always think too, forgiveness is for you. It's not necessarily for, uh, I don't know, like if you forgive somebody, okay, but if you when you ask for forgiveness, that's pretty humbling, right? You're admitting that maybe things didn't go as planned, or maybe you didn't do what you were supposed to do. And I think when you humble yourself, that changes everything.
It changes everything because in that moment, you're in admittance of your inner deficiencies. Like when you look at a sin is an inner deficiency. All it means is that the person is immature, they're without stability, and they're making poor decisions because they lack the trust and the drive to be able to take an emotional risk, which is, and a risk is doing something outside of your historical record, meaning what your family has always done. Like I come from a family primarily of alcoholics. Okay. So when I chose sobriety, I was stepping way outside of what my family had always done. And that's a risk, right? Because what are
Mhm.
you going to risk? You're risking that you might be shunned, you might be abandoned, you might be ignored, you might be made fun of. And so I would say to anyone, the most important being that you receive love from is yourself and from God,
Mm.
right?
So
Because every human is a reflection of God's love, light, laughter, and presence. And whether or not that's been covered up by a bunch of survival based strategies, by a bunch of generational tension and stress and distortion and trauma, underneath all of that is still that all spark, that spark of God's light that He put in your soul that makes you unique. And if you humble yourself and you admit out loud to someone else and you say, listen, I really have been mistreating, you're in admittance of your shortcomings, of your own sins. And when you can do that, everything can transcend. But if you're unable to do that, if you're unable to humble yourself, to admit in front of someone else that I am struggling with growing beyond my own limitations of my historical record, then you're never going to be able to transcend those things. And if you can't transcend them, you're only left with one option, which is to be a martyr, which is to blame others, which is to blame the situation, which is to blame the history. And so the only way out of that is humility. And great thing is, you can always get on your knees. Right? And God doesn't need you to get on your knees, right? You can do that at, as an honoring. That's not required. Okay, you can do it sitting in a chair, right? There's tons of people in wheelchairs that can't get on their knees. Okay, all right. There's tons of people that have bad knees that they can't get on their knees, right? So what I mean by that is take time to connect to the divine, universal, supreme, prime creator, the creator of all that is, and just simply say, I'm sorry for
wow.
mistreating and abusing all the gifts that you gave me. And I would love to have the strength to do better.
Yeah, that's so powerful. That's so powerful. I think of people that I know, people that I've seen through life, and there seems to be two kinds of people. Either the people that on one hand, one kind of people are the people that go, well, this is what my dad was like, this is how far they went. This is my grandpa, only went this far in business. This is the kind of job I'm going to have because that's what I know, because that's what's been demonstrated to me. That's what I've seen. And then there's the people that go, you know what? I I'm not going to smoke because when I was a kid, my mom smoked like a chimney. And in Michigan, with the windows rolled up in the winter, that is not a joyful ride. And so I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to smoke. And she died the same way your mom died at the same age. Or she wasn't the same age. She was older. I was 29 when she did. And which is the hardest way
Yeah.
to lose somebody, right? But but she drank. So I don't want to drink. Like so there are the people that go, I want different from my life, that whatever level my parents were at, good for them. You know, whatever people get to choose, people get to pick how they live their lives, right? So that's them. But I want better. I want more. I want different. I want something else. I want to break those generational habits and generational issues and generational limitations. And is that how you see it too?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. Like I see it similar in the sense that everyone has a right to choose, and everyone is a parent or has a sphere of influence has a fiduciary responsibility to be the best version of themselves and to be conscious enough to see things as they are rather than pretend and live in fantasy. Like anyone who's smoking on a regular basis, drinking on a regular basis, being harsh on a regular basis, hurting themselves in some way on a regular basis is living in a fantasy if you think that that's going to produce something that you love.
mm,
What it's going to produce is anxiety. It's going to produce a foggy mind or a hyperactive mind. It's going to produce a body that's very uncomfortable and tight and stressed. And it's going to produce low level amounts of energy and exhaustion. And so, what I want people to do is to at least, if you're going to imbibe in those things, at least be honest with yourself and go, look, this is taking me nowhere. But at least you're saying, I understand I'm going nowhere. But to think that you can imbibe on those things constantly and that that's going to take you somewhere and help you build a deeper, um, more connected relationship with your source of inspiration, which is God, then you're pretending and you're lying to yourself. And I would say, stop doing that and find a way, find some aspect of yourself that you love and you care about. Whether it's your smile, whether it's the way your eyes look, whether it's your hair, whether it's your children. Like, get strength from something else that will at least allow you to take a small baby step towards building balance back into your life, whether that's emotional, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's spiritual.
yeah, so important. So
So
important.
important.
And it's free.
It's free.
It doesn't cost you anything
Yeah,
to
it's
do
free.
this.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the thing that I love about it. It's free. And, life is short, it goes by quickly. And a lot of people have a lot of regrets. And so, they want to numb out from their historical record. They want to numb out from their parents' choices. They want to numb out from actions that they took. They want to numb out from the depressed area that they live in. And I say, look, when you have a lamp, you never put it in the closet. Shine your light as bright as you can because that's
Hmm.
going to make you feel good. It's also going to make somebody else feel good because in the beginning, all there was love. Like, people get stuck on the story of in the beginning, God said, let there be light. But what they forgot is that in the beginning, all there was love because that's what God was. And then from love, God said, let there be light so that we could have a structure to press love through. But in the end, love is all that matters.
My gosh, that's so good. That's so good. It's so true. And
So true.
and yeah, it all started with love. And God is love. Not that
That's
God
right.
loves. Of course he loves, but he embodies it. He is love. And
That's right.
we're created in his image. So we too are love.
We are love.
And yeah.
So
And so often, I think women maybe are more guilty of this, but we think doing things for ourselves can be a selfish act. And we've been taught that, right? Like, oh gosh, be the last in line, do the whatever it is, sacrifice everything and anything for everybody, always, everywhere. And to me, loving yourself uh, is the most selfless thing that you can do.
for sure.
Because if you can love yourself, you can more fully love others. And
Hmm.
you're going to show up for people in a whole different way.
Yeah, and you're going to have more energy for people. Like, when you're um, if you look at love as as a polarity, right? And it has a feminine and it has a masculine aspect, you know that self-love, right, is loving yourself. You know, which is feminine, to love that goes in and down, right? Well, that means the masculine version of love is what comes up and out, right? When God's loving you, that's love that's coming up and out. And so the key is to be able to take heartfelt action to your own benefit and to the benefit of others. And the more positive things that you can do for yourself, the more positive things you're capable of to do for others. Because everything is a mirror and everything is reflective and relative.
Interesting. That's so good. That's so interesting. So here we are together, you and me, becoming good friends.
Yeah.
And so when you're sitting with somebody and they say, "Hey, what are my first steps? Like, what do I need to do so that I can sleep all night? Or what is it that's holding me back?" I know you already talked about get on your knees, ask for forgiveness, humble yourself. Absolutely. Probably those are the first things you need to do. But kind of then what? Like what are the next steps?
I think, well, I'll tell you what I do when I'm struggling with something. I connect to God and I go, look, I need help here. Can you send me this kind of person? And sure enough, I'm coming out of the grocery store and I see a card on the ground. I'm like, what's that? And I look it up and it's like, oh, back pain. Oh, let me call this guy. I call and meaning that I follow the breadcrumbs that God gives me, but I always set clear intentions, right? So, and I'm very specific about what it is that I need. And so, in order to be able to take all of those steps, what's first required though is inner honesty. Okay. So if I have a toothache, example, or I have a stiff neck, or I'm $45,000 in debt, or I am engaged in a relationship outside of marriage, right? Then I have to be honest with myself and then ask God for strength and guidance in the places where I'm aware that I have inner deficiencies, insecurities, fears, and limiting beliefs. And so the first step is to take out a sheet of paper and write down your five strongest limiting beliefs. Okay? Write down your five strongest inner deficiencies. Okay? And your five strongest fears.
Hmm.
And then sit down with your wife, your brother, your mom, your dad, and share with someone that this is what you have. And when you do that, you're calling yourself out of the guilt and the shame that you live with on a daily basis and letting someone see you in your fullness, in your weakness. And if you can sit down and do that with someone and go, look, um, I have a fear of heights. Okay. Um, I have a fear of letting my mom know how bothered I am about my brother doing this. I have a fear that there's never going to be enough food, so I always eat more than I should. And as you start outing yourself and you do this with another human, then guess what's going to happen? The guilt and that shame that you felt about those fears and those insecurities and those inner deficiencies and those limiting beliefs, they're going to start to lift. And now you have a sheet where you can go to God, you can go, hey, I need help with this, this, and this. Can you send somebody to me that will help me with these things? And Source will go, God will go, yeah, well, of course. Right? Right?
Right. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. I
Knock
mean,
and you shall receive, right?
that's right.
I mean,
Yeah. Just
knock and the
ask.
door
I
shall
mean,
be
it,
open, ask and you shall receive. Like, those that pathway was already laid out and it's very simplistic. And so now I have the list, I'm knocking on the door, and now I'm asking to receive. And then all I have to do is follow the breadcrumbs that are laid down before me. And when I'm following those breadcrumbs, what I'm saying essentially is I trust in my relationship and the guidance of the divine. And
mm,
when I do that and I take that step, now I have more confidence, right? Meaning I'm building my spiritual cachet of positive experiences and love and light and presence is building because there's a breadcrumb that's laid down. I'm taking heartfelt action. I'm following it through. I'm getting a result that's full of love, light, laughter, and presence. And
mm.
now I'm building a deeper relationship with God that's personal.
Yeah.
Okay?
It is personal
Yeah.
and should be personal. And to build that, uh, it's interesting to me, Christopher, that so many of us, so many people ask, God, please help me with this. God, please, whatever it is, God, please tell me which way to go. And then don't look for the answer
Mm.
and are just kind of unaware. Kind of like that story. I'm going to get it wrong, but I'm going to tell it anyway.
Okay.
Of the guy in a flood sitting on the roof
Oh
praying,
yeah.
Lord, send me, rescue me, rescue me. And a boat goes by and they say, hey, jump in, we'll take care of you. And he's like, no, no, because he's waiting for God to rescue him. And then a helicopter offers to pick him up. And he's like, no, 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 because he's waiting for God to rescue him. And eventually he's like, God, why are you not rescuing me? And God says, did you see the boat?
Yeah.
Did you see the helicopter?
Yeah.
Like open your eyes and see what it is that God is sending you and who he's putting in your
In
path.
front of you. Yeah. And then you just follow the breadcrumbs. And when people have difficulty doing that, it's because they lack trust that something positive is going to happen for them because in their history, all they have are losses. So, how could you ever believe the possibility of a win? So, I understand where they're coming from. I understand what the history has taught them. But what I would say to you and to anyone else is that you must take an emotional risk. And the risk is you could get on your knees and pray and hear nothing. And then, okay, well, I didn't hear anything, so I'll stop, right? And then you keep at it because eventually, the more you arrive, the universe is going to start hearing you and is going to start believing you. And then
Right.
before you know it, as you build a pattern, so think about it like this whenever you set an intention, well, a thought has very little weight. It's super, super fast, but it's very, very little weight. As you recreate that thought again and again and again and again, that thought eventually becomes a belief. And once you have a belief, now you can magnetically draw whatever it is you want to surround that belief. But if your belief is no one actually really cares, and you've had that same thought 10,000 times, it would be fool's gold to think that you could say something one time and then that would balance those 10,000 negative thoughts out with one positive thought. And so you have to keep going back to the well again and again and again because a thought again is very light. But as you keep doing it, that intention is getting more dense. All right. And it's building an electromagnetic force around it. And you think it again, and you think it again. You keep thinking. Now it's getting bigger, it's getting stronger, it's getting bigger, it's getting stronger, it's getting bigger, it's getting stronger. And before you know, it starts attracting a lot of opportunities for you to be able to transcend that limiting belief that was passed off to you by your ancestors and actually has nothing to do with you.
Yeah. Right. Right. Oh my gosh, that's so good. That's so good. That's so true. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but I've heard people say over and over again, "Oh my gosh, I just don't sleep. I just can't sleep at night. Just that's what it is." Well, or I just can't lose the weight. I just can't, or I just can't seem to get a break in life. Well, when you say it over and over and over, and you tell other people and other people and other people that you just can't lose the weight, well, guess what? Then you're not going to.
Yeah, because your body's hearing you. Like everything that you say is being recorded at an unconscious level, at a subconscious level, at a superconscious level, and at a preconscious and conscious level. So if you're recording this, right, and you're informing your body and you're saying, listen, I'm giving you these limitations, then your body is hired and required to listen to you
Mm.
because the brain sits at the top. The body sits below the chin, which means the body's below the head. It's subconscious. It's below conscious, right? So if you think your brain is conscious, you think of your breath and your emotions as unconscious. Okay, unconscious simply means to be without thought. The breath has no thought. Well, where do you go from there? You go subconscious. So your body always tells you the truth of what's going on. So if you have pain in your body, we know you have a limiting belief that's creating that pain.
Mm.
Okay. If you have pain in your emotions, we know you have a limiting belief in your body and your brain. If you have pain in your mind, we know you have a limiting belief that's sitting at an unconscious, a subconscious, or superconscious level. And we have to figure out how to transcend those things. And so the plan is what I said earlier. You have to write down your list, right? This is your opportunity to be honest. Wow, what are my five strongest fears, right? What are my five strongest insecurities? What are my five strongest limiting beliefs? And what are my five strongest um, inner deficiencies? And once you lay those down and you share them with someone, now you're being outwardly honest. You start with inner honesty, you shift to outer honesty, which means now you're inviting someone in your story. And what it says, where two or more are gathered, the presence of God is there. And
Mm.
so that's why you're including someone else in your inner deficiencies, insecurities, fears, and limiting beliefs, because these are the things that you have to work on in order to be able to transcend and get to another state of divine expression.
Wow. Holy cow. You're so good.
Thank you.
You're so good. You're so wise. Like you probably have prayed for wisdom and God has given it to you. So
God is,
you get
yeah,
what you pray for
you get
if you
what you
look
pray
for it.
for.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So good. And we're out of time, unfortunately. I have so enjoyed this conversation with you, Christopher.
Me too. It's been awesome. Yeah,
Yeah. So good. So good.
I've
I so
really enjoyed
appreciate
our
it.
time together.
Yeah. So again, your website to send people.
Is truebodyintelligence.com. Okay. In the future, you'll be able to go to the True Body Intelligence, the tbiacademy.com, which is where you can find one of my practitioners and be able to work with them, and they'll be able to help you. I wrote a book called Free for Life, a U.S. Navy SEAL's Path to Inner Freedom and Outer Peace. It's made as an audio file. And so you can go to my website, again, truebodyintelligence.com, order the book, read it, get the education. Because once you understand how stress works and how disease works, you can reverse engineer it.
Mm.
But if you don't understand how you got into the situation you're in, all you're left with is the ability to blame. So to take responsibility requires you seeking education that's beyond what you know, right? So you get the
Right.
book, you read the book. If you read the book and you call me, I will give you a half hour free consultation. It doesn't cost you anything. And I'll give you some guidance and direct you towards someone or something that I think would be very useful and helpful to you. And you do that. So read the book and then go to support@truebodyintelligence.com. Email Christina. She'll set us up on a connection call, and I'll devote some time, some energy, and some love to help you gain some clarity and direction and guidance on actionable steps that you can take to begin to love yourself.
Wow, that's such a generous offer. Everybody, go do that. Get the book, read the book,
Yes, do
send the
that.
email, set it
Yeah,
up. I mean, it would be silly to not take you up on that offer. I mean,
yeah.
that is a fantastic offer.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being such an incredible guest and just pouring out so much wisdom and love today. I so appreciate it. And thank you for being with us and buy the book. And until next time, be blessed.